This is a review of the Lello Musso Pola 5030. It's the second most powerful ice cream machine that you can run on standard home electricity, at least that I'm aware of. I've been using it quite heavily to make ice cream, sorbets, gelatos at just about commercial level quality. It will freeze a batch in about 18 minutes. It's a 300 watt machine, so whether you're a dedicated enthusiast or a restaurateur who doesn't need too much volume, this machine's a workhorse and will get you through it. Let's break down the specs of the machine as well as make a sample batch. Let's get into it.
Okay, so this is super easy to use. There's not many parts here. We have our mixing paddle over here with this little plastic insert that you can take off in order to be able to clean it. So we would just put it on top just like that. And then we have a screw top here. And this paddle, and I'll turn it on, you can see we have a timer that's gonna go up to 60 minutes. When you're making ice cream, don't forget to keep turning this back on so it doesn't shut off mid making a batch. We can turn on the machine right here, and that'll activate the paddle to start churning. Now, it's not super high RPM. You're gonna get maybe 25 to 35% overrun depending on the mix that you have. So if you're looking to make a really high overrun product, you're not gonna get it out of this machine. It's really a gelato machine, and there's just not enough horsepower for the motor there to even whip that heavily. And then we only have one other button here, and that's just to start freezing. And let's go ahead and turn it on. Now that's gonna activate it. I personally like to have this going for about 15 minutes before I put a batch in, and then we'll check the temperature of the side of the walls to see how cold it gets. Okay, so we're about 10 minutes in here, and if we take our temperature gun, you can see, and it's really the bottom here that is all lined. Okay, so I got 2 quarts, or just under really 2 quarts of cinnamon ice cream base here. I don't really use the measuring cup all that much. I do it mostly by weight, as when you're making any recipe, however you want to scale it up or down, much easier to be working in grams. So we'll be going ahead and pouring this in. It is a 2-quart machine, so normally we're gonna end up with about 4 to 5 packed pints per run. But let's go ahead and pour this in. Make sure the paddle's turning when you turn it on, so the ice cream doesn't freeze to the bottom. One of the potential challenges here is that the motor for the paddle isn't all that strong. I think it's 3/4 of a horsepower. And so for some ice creams, you're gonna find that towards the end of the mix, it's not gonna be able to churn it any further, especially if you're adding any gums or whatnot. By and large, this doesn't happen. It's not all that much of a problem. And again, we're using the best machine you can use on a 110 line, but I went ahead, I filled it. I try to fill it just to the point, if you wanna eye it out, to where the second paddle is starting to get covered with mix. So this is after 5 minutes. You can see we're just starting to get a little bit of thickening, but we still got quite a ways to go here. Okay, so here we are about 10 minutes in. We're starting to firm up quite a bit, but we still have a decent amount of time to go here. And remember that this is all going to be variable just depending on what your base is. I create my own 14% butterfat mix that uses a little bit of dextrose, so the freezing point here is a little bit lower than maybe some others. But if you're using alcohol or say other things, just remember it's good, your mileage may vary depending on what you actually put in your base. So we're just over 16 minutes. You can see we're in that 22, 23 degree range. So depending on the base, this is roughly where you're gonna get. I'm gonna give it another 2 minutes. I like to draw at about 21 degrees, 21, 20, 21, 22 if I can. You're gonna have a hard time getting anything lower than that on this particular machine. But we're just about ready to pull, so I'm gonna prepare for that. One of the nice things about this machine, because you can load from the top here, is that you can actually put your mix in, so whether it's cookies and cream or something else, directly in at the end. Can be useful for cool effects or just for getting the mix in. You don't want to do it too early because, like I said, the horsepower on the motor isn't super high, so it might stop the ice cream from spinning and freezing and subsequently whipping air in. But towards the end, I'm in the last 10 seconds, you can go ahead and let the blades mix that down into the base. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and pack some pints. Turn the mixing paddle off. I'll also turn off the compressor. By the way, if you don't know, the compressor is the entire value of any freezing equipment, whether that's an AC or a refrigerator like this effectively. The entire value is in the compressor, so you don't want to be turning this thing on and off like crazy because you could potentially damage that compressor. So I turned it off, And this is the plastic spoon that comes with the machine. You can see we have a nice texture here, not dripping off quite too fast off the spoon, somewhere in that 20-21 degree area. And this is gonna be delicious stuff. As I fill the pints, I'm gonna take them and put them in my freezer really quickly, because like I said, with ice cream, texture is everything, so the faster you can get that into the freezer, the better. So I'm gonna throw the top on, put it in the freezer, and then fill the next pint. I like to fill directly from the machine. Your preference here, of course, you can just extract everything, potentially put it into an insulated tub or not, and just try to work really quickly. I like that because I'm using it within the machine, the walls are still gonna be pretty cold. Now, of course, if you're trying to churn out a lot of ice cream, get it out of there as fast as you can, because what you'd wanna do is get the paddle spinning again and be able to load it up with more base so you can churn your next batch. But I'm not in any particular rush today, and even so, this doesn't take too long. You gotta leave the compressor off for a good 5 minutes, because like I said, you don't wanna damage that compressor, because you're gonna end up calling an Italian company, trying to get a specialty part, and I'm sure they're gonna charge you a pretty penny, and you might as well probably buy a new machine at that point. And yes, the ice cream is absolutely delicious. Okay, so you can see that we got 5 finished pints here. So gonna be super delicious, low overrun product, nice thick consistency, and we're gonna rush these into the freezer and let them harden for, gonna need a good, at least 5-6 hours, depending on the strength of your freezer, if not more. So now it's time for extraction. Like I said, you can leave a little bit in there if you're gonna be going ahead and making the same flavor and pouring in more base, or a flavor that it wouldn't be problematic. You can just start pouring in more base. Even if the sidewalls are frozen a little bit, when you pour in that new base, it's gonna bring the temperature back down. You'll be able to start again. But I'm not making any more, so we'll turn it off and I'll show you how to clean it. So I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this down. So I'll put a little bit of hot water in here and then use a sponge to remove some of that water. And soap. At the end of all that, I'll sanitize it down, and then I can either run another batch or I can just be done with it. As it compares to the Lello 4080, which is also a pretty popular option, this is actually something that the really dedicated enthusiast who really wants to be able to share ice cream in sufficient quantity, or even a small restaurateur, or even a small, I wouldn't go as far as ice cream shop, then you'd really need something that has a larger capacity. The 4080, you're gonna have longer residence time for the ice cream. It likely doesn't have as strong of a compressor inside of it, and you're just not gonna get as much quantity, of course. And then as for comparing it to something else, the only thing that I think might be faster on your standard household line might be the Emery Thompson 200, but then you're looking at a piece of machinery that goes for $7,000-8,000. So at least from the perspective of something that is $1,100, I have to say this machine's been a workhorse for me. Really have had very few troubles with it, and even with upgraded machinery that I have at a commercial level on a 220 line, I'll still intend to continue using my Lello. Thank you and bye.